How's your week been so far? We're only halfway and already ready for the weekend. Much the apologies for not recording yesterday. I was planning to, but I was absolutely paggered. I was so tired. You know what it's like when you've got so much to do and you have to just keep powering through, and you do it until you drop. But then at least you got it all done and you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the week because you've got it done. What's your strategy when it comes to getting a lot of stuff done at one time? Do you kind of like do it all in one go, or do you pace it like I should have done, to be fair? Or do you kind of like leave it till the last minute, then panic and then just like do it all in one big like mother load of That's the technical term for lots of stuff to do. As ever, if you can leave a comment, let me know how you're doing. Big love and lots of strength to those of you that are going through extra challenges right now. We're coming into autumn, so this is my time of year. I love the cooler weather. It's not so aggressive as the sunshine, and we can get things done. You know, you want it to, get done throughout summer, but had to put off because it was far too flipping hot. But yes, sending lots of love and strength to all of you. And if you could keep me little hamsters happy. It sounds like a euphemism, but it really isn't. But if you could hit the like button, notifications bell, share and subscribe, it keeps the lights on here at the cat flap. Yes. I actually back in the day made these like not glass painting, but used kind of like these little squeezy bottles to make these like glass transfers. You stick them onto glass, and I remembered making one when I first moved in here of the cat flap, which incidentally was the same thing I called my first flat that I'd bought when I was 18. I called that the cat flap as well, because it had a cat flap, but at that point I didn't have a cat. So the irony was absolutely palpable, but nowadays I do have cats, and I have cat flaps in all the internal doors because it makes life easier, and it keeps the heat in because it cooled up here. Yes. Okay, I'll stop whiffling now. Chapter 7 of Painted Dragon by our beloved Mr. Tom Holt.
"Here you," said George, "nosh for 6, quick as you like."
While Father Kelly quivered his acquiescence, George considered the finer points of hospitality.
"Anything your lot can't eat?" he asked, "on religious grounds, or whatever?"
Chardonnay shook his head. "I don't think so," he replied.
"Perjurers always give me wind, mind,"
Slitgrind interrupted.
"unless they're pickled in brimstone, then with spring vegetables and a pleasant niersteiner, or—"
"We've got cheese," Father Kelly replied, "or chicken roll." Slitgrind sniffed.
"Make it the chicken," he said. "Cheese makes you have nightmares."
Father Kelly stared at him, made a very small high-pitched noise without opening his lips, and fled. George slumped into the armchair and waved his new friends to do likewise.
"So,"
ventured Chardonnay, after an uncomfortable silence,
"you're a saint?"
George nodded.
"Fully accredited, got my own day and everything."
Among the demons, glances were exchanged. Chardonnay went on, his face indicating a long time before his mouth opened that he was about to say something that would be difficult to put diplomatically.
"You see, the fact of the matter is—"
"Hang on, I forgot something."
George picked up a heavy alabaster figure of the Holy Virgin and bashed it on the mantelpiece until Father Kelly reappeared.
"We'll need booze as well," he said. "What you got?"
With his eyes shut, the priest started to recite. Let me see now," he said. "Spirits, we've got brandy, gin and vodka, Johnny Walker Black Label, Bell's Famous Grouse, the Macallan and Jack Daniels. Beer, there's Guinnesses, Heineken, Beck's, Grudge, Newcastle Brown, or Stella Artois."
"No Holston pills?" Sorry.
Christ.
Chardonnay coughed softly, like a sheep who's just wandered into someone else's hotel room by mistake. Actually, he said, a cup of tea will do just fine. Slit grinned and Prodsnap began to protest. Then they caught Snorkfrod's eye and subsided. George shrugged.
Please yourselves, he said. Well, don't just stand there, ponce, jump to it.
Father Kelly vanished, and George turned round to face the demons.
Sorry, he said. You were saying?
We're, Chardonnay swallowed, actually, we're devils. From hell. I, thought you ought to know that before you started, well, giving us things to eat and, things.
I know,
George replied, puzzled.
Like I told you, I'm a goddamn saint. We know these things.
I see. Chardonnay bit his lip, remembering just too late that he was no longer human and suppressing a yelp of pain. Only, I thought you might, well, we are on different sides, so to speak.
Bullshit,
George replied crisply, lighting a lucky strike and blowing smoke at the ceiling.
We're on the same side.
Where? He added, crinkling his face with a rather distasteful grin.
The good guys.
I beg your pardon.
The white hats.
George amplified, enjoying himself.
The U.S. Cavalry, the Mounties. Sure, we do different jobs, but we all work for the same big guy. Only difference is, I sent the baddies to hell, and you lot keep them there. Jeez, I thought you people would have known that.
There was a further exchange of glances. 5 demons began to say something, but decided at the last moment not to. Eventually, Chardonnay inclined his head in a non-committal nod. Point taken, he said. It's just that we thought your lot, I mean, saints and angels and so on, were, well, took a less pragmatic view of the situation. After all, there was this war.
So?
George chuckled.
Power struggles, palace coups, knights of the long knives. You get office politics in any big organisation. Doesn't mean that at the end of the day you aren't all basically pulling together as a team.
Chardonnay sighed. However hard he tried to play Angel's advocate, he couldn't fault the logic. All right, he said, I agree, but
more to the point,
George interrupted, leaning forward and leaking smoke in Chardonnay's face.
What in buggery are you lot doing here? Bit off your patch, aren't you?
Ah, said Chardonnay. Well, we missed the bus, said Prodsnap.
Got left behind on purpose, more like.
Slit grinned, grumbled.
Probably thought it was funny. The pillocks. I'll show them funny.
Bus?
George was stroking his chin, his mouth hidden behind his fingers.
What bus?
Works outing, Prodsnap answered. To Nashville, he sighed. The Grand Old Opry. Gracelands. If George was disconcerted, he did a good job of covering it up.
Got you, he said. So, basically, you're stranded miles outside your jurisdiction. You're going to have to walk back, and if anybody recognises you for what you are, there'll be one hell of an incident, and when you get back, you're all going to find yourselves sideways promoted to mucking out the Great Shit Lakes, right?
5 demons nodded. Whoever this jerk was, he surely knew the score. Probably, they found themselves speculating, it's pretty much the same upstairs. George's grin widened, as though someone were driving wedges into the corners of his mouth.
But, he went on, suppose that when you got back, you had with you a prisoner, someone who should have been down your way yonks ago. Let's say a member of staff of your department who went AWOL a long time ago and never reported for duty. Be a bit different then, wouldn't it?
The demons agreed that yes, it would, very much so.
Fine, George said. In that case,
I think I can help you. Listen up.
How?
The dragon shrugged. There, he said, you have me. Ugh, he added, pulling a face. There's something in this.
Bianca nodded. Lead, she said. They put it in to make engines go better. Scowling, the dragon wiped his mouth on his sleeve, put the cap back on the jerry can and spat.
Disgusting, he said, like putting chicory in coffee or menthol cigarettes. Oh well, never mind. Now then, finding George. I've got to admit, I haven't exactly got what you might call a plan of campaign. You see, I was relying on him coming to find me.
You think that's likely? From the bandstand, a few hundred grassy yards away, came the sound of professional soldiers playing selections from The Pirates of Penzance. Children scampered to and fro, trying to cut each other's limbs off with plastic swords. Wasps crooned. In the tree overhead, a squirrel was debating the merits of competing instant access deposit accounts.
I thought it was likely. I'm not so sure. World's a lot bigger since our day. More people, more buildings, and in the meanwhile I've got to stay hidden and inconspicuous. Rubbish your modern armaments may be, but I can't spend the rest of eternity swatting jet fighters. Sooner or later they'll work out a way of nailing me. That'd be that.
Bianca ate a crisp. So, you're thinking of packing it all in? She asked.
Maybe, the dragon shrugged. Or at the very least, make myself scarce for a while. That's why I tried to get a job. It didn't work out.
There was a giggle from Bianca's end of the bench. A job, she said. Really?
Yes, really. I was a security guard.
And it didn't suit? The dragon shook his head.
And before you start suggesting alternatives, he went on, high on the list of jobs I'm not prepared to consider are such things as self-propelled welding plant, mobile tandoori oven, late-night hamburger chef, or industrial paint stripper. So if that's what you were thinking...
Perish the thought.
No,
continued the dragon ominously.
Would I welcome remarks containing the phrases bright spark, set the Thames on fire, stepping on the gas, or hey mister, you got a light? Understood?
Quite, but what are you going to do? Bianca looked at him. I mean, sprawling on park benches under a newspaper with a can of 4-Star wrapped in brown paper is not going to get you very far, is it?
Actually, I quite like myths.
No, Bianca went on, standing up and brushing away crumbs. This won't do at all. For one thing, what about my statue? The dragon looked at her severely.
Oh, come on, he said. It's traditional. Gentlemen always owe their tailors. Anyway, you should be proud. It's not every chiseler whose stuff's good enough to live in.
Be that as it may, I've got a contract and deadlines. It's bad enough that I've got to do St. George all over again.
You're kidding. You seriously expect me to spend the rest of my life sitting in a public square just to save you a bit of extra work?
Bianca nodded. Least you can do, she replied firmly. After all, if it wasn't for me, presumably you would still be wandering about the astral void, or whatever it was you used to do. The dragon took a long swig of petrol and burped.
Actually, he said, it wasn't like that at all. I can't remember it all that clearly, because as soon as you cross back into this lot, it sort of slips out through the cat flap of your mind. But I think quite a fair proportion of it was sitting in bars.
Figures. A frown pinched the dragon's face.
In fact,
he went on,
It wasn't bad at all, from what little I can remember. Don't know why I came back, to be perfectly honest. Job left undone. Sense of purpose. Something like that. A dripping tap in the bathroom of eternity.
The dragon stood up. On the one hand, he neither liked nor disliked individual humans, in the same way that humans don't have favourites among blades of grass. On the other hand, this was the longest sustained conversation he'd ever had with one, and he was beginning to wonder if, given time, you couldn't get used to them. And if you did, would it matter that you'd spent many happy hours in the long ago reducing them to more or less pure carbon? It hadn't mattered then, but circumstances change.
Tell you what I'll do,
he said.
I'll be your statue until you have to deliver and you get paid. In the meantime, I'll stick with this ridiculous outfit.
He indicated his human body with a gesture pirated from an archduke's chauffeur, condescending to have a go on the dodgems.
And you help me find George. It will be much easier for you, what with you being a human and all. What do you say?
Bianca considered. It sounds fair enough, she replied, except I've got to do a new St. George. That's going to take time. The dragon picked up a chunk of sandwich crust and lobbed it to a passing squirrel.
Depends,
he replied.
Maybe I can help you there. Got any sheet iron?
Well?
Looking good,
the dragon replied.
Much quicker this way, isn't it?
Bianca nodded. She was exhausted and drenched in sweat. The temperature inside the derelict foundry was murderous. Just the sword to do, she croaked, and that's it. They made the sword. That is, Bianca sketched it in chalk on the wall and then took cover. The dragon, back in his true form, then snipped a length off the steel sheet, breathed on it until it was cherry red, and moulded it carefully between his paws, like a child with plasticine. When she was happy with the result, he dunked it in the water tank.
Anything else you want doing while I'm at it?
He asked.
Designer tableware, couple of cell doors, new off-side front wing for your car.
No, thank you. Can we go now, please? It's rather stuffy in here. With a shrug, the dragon scooped an armful of finished metalwork out of the water tank, knelt down so that Bianca could perch on his shoulder, and took off vertically out through where the foundry roof used to be before a catastrophic fire finished off that huge, preservation order-bound, highly insured edifice. 2 minutes later, they were back in Victoria Square. If anybody noticed their arrival, they didn't say anything. Fine, Bianca said, stepping off and doing her best to conceal her total joy at being back on the ground. All right, let's see what it looks like. The dragon dumped the metalwork and struck a pause.
Well?
You look ridiculous. Try again.
Better?
No.
Oh, all right. What about this?
Bianca narrowed her eyes. The left front knee a bit further in, and let's have a bit more wing. Yes, that's it. Hold it right there. That's...
Yes, I like it,
murmured the dragon, human once more, and standing beside her.
Apart from looking like a tinned food advert, it's not too bad.
Bianca ignored him. It was different and good. It was no longer St. George and the dragon. It was now the dragon eating St. George. To be precise, the dragon, having noshed the juicy bits, was now crunching up the armour in the hope of getting out the last few shreds, like you do with a crab or lobster, except you have better table manners. Hence, Bianca realised with a slight shudder the reference to dins. Never mind.
That,
said the dragon cheerfully,
is making me feel distinctly peckish. Fancy a curry?
Night lay on Birmingham like a lead duvet. A few revellers stumbled through the darkling streets, beer-fuddled, in search of an all-night kebab van. Here and there, a doorway or low arch concealed the occasional mugger, criminal, or lawyer. Apart from that, the mighty city dozed fitfully. Birmingham, however, sleeps with the light on. You can read a book by the street lamps in the city centre, although the chances are that you won't get further than chapter 3 before someone hits you over the head and steals it. Narrator's Note, one of our longest-standing, most lovely listeners, I believe, comes from Birmingham, so if you would like to provide some insight into how accurate this actually is in the depiction of Birmingham in itself, by all means do so in the comment section. However, if you don't want to, that's fine as well. I was just curious, because Birmingham, although I have got some family that live there, I don't know it very well because I've not visited them there, you know. Anyway, I digress. Back to the story. In any event, it's bright enough to make out, say, a small procession consisting of a saint, a priest, and 5 demons, staggering slightly under the weight of 3 packing cases of plastic explosive, electronic timing devices, blast shields, and a genx trolley. "Careful," George hissed, as Chardonnay caught his foot in a pothole and tottered. "You fall over with that lot, there'll be nothing left but a huge hole in the ground and a pile of rubble. Mind you," he added, looking around, "in this town, I don't suppose anyone would notice." "Sorry," Chardonnay replied. "Look, is it much further? Because my back—" Before he could finish the sentence, the crate was snatched from his hands by Snorkfrot, who gave him a dazzling smile and then let George have her opinion of thoughtless pigs who make delicate, sensitive fiends from hell carry heavy loads. "Bloody shop floor fire," muttered Chardonnay to himself. "She's carrying 2 of those enormous cases under one arm. Tough lady." He shuddered. "Shut your row," George replied. "Look, it's only just round the next corner."
"You said that an hour ago,"
Slitgrind grumbled, shifting his lord onto his shoulder with his middle hand.
"Couple of 100 yards, you said, and—"
George stopped dead and put a tennis racket-sized hand around the demon's throat.
"You calling me a liar, son?"
"Yes."
"Huh?"
Slitgrind nodded, insofar as George's hand permitted.
"Yes," he repeated, "just telling the truth. Like my old mum used to say, tell the truth and shame the... whatever. Always used to wonder whose ruddy side she was on."
"Oh, look," said Father Kelly, "I think we're here now." George let Slitgrind go.
"Right, lads," he said. "Now, you 2 start packing the jelly around the... Fuck me!"
He was staring at the statue. Quite suddenly, he wasn't feeling very well. Imagine how a turkey would feel, switching on the telly in mid-December and catching the Delia Smith programme. Narrator's note, if anybody doesn't know, Delia Smith was a very famous TV chef, absolutely delightful, quite the sweetest woman in the world. I digress. She's probably still going, actually. I digress again. Prodsnap nudged him in the back.
"That's it, is it?"
George nodded.
"Bastard,"
he said.
"I take that personally."
"And,"
Prodsnap went on,
"there's a fair old chance that at any minute that huge great statue could, wake up, yes?"
"Yes."
Prodsnap studied the dragon for a while.
"I don't think he likes you very much,"
he said, backing slowly away.
"In fact, I get the feeling there's definitely a bit of the old needle there."
"Yes, there's even more now."
Prodsnap was now standing just behind George's back.
"Looks to me," he said, "like this is one of those private quarrels where outsiders butting in only makes things worse. Usually," he added with a swallow, "for the outsiders. In fact, I have the feeling we'd all get on a lot better if we just put all this stuff down in a neat pile and went home.
Fingers like roadside cafe sausages closed around his arm.
Not chickening out, are you?
George breathed quietly.
What have you got to be afraid of, you cretin? You're immortal. Thumpable,
he added.
But definitely immortal.
Yes,
Prodsnap said.
Well, I've always found that the best way to be immortal is not getting yourself killed. Like the best way to avoid divorce is not getting married. I think I'd like to go now, please.
George snarled.
Stop whimpering, the lot of you,
he said, his voice more gravelly than a long posh driveway.
Anybody gives me any more lip, what's left of him's going to get reported to his CO for dereliction of duty. Understood?
We'd better do as he says, Chardonnay said wretchedly. After all, it's our duty and our best chance of getting home. That's right, said Snorkfrod. You listen to Mr. C. He's never wrong about these things. Her knee, Chardonnay realised with horror, was rubbing up and down the back of his leg. Scales like sandpaper.
All right, Prodsnap grumbled. You win. Just don't blame me, that's all.
Excuse me. St. George and 4 demons looked round, then down. Excuse me, said the small demon Holdall, but don't you think a very loud bang and lots of bits of rock flying through the air is going to be a bit conspicuous? I thought we were meant to be keeping a low profile. 3 streets away, a police car doppled and faded. Someone began to sing "Heard It on the Grapevine," but soon ran out of words. The stray sounds vanished into the night, like a wage check into a gambler's overdraft.
Shut up, you.
Yes, Holdall went on, but surely there's a better way than just blowing the thing up. Safer too.
Safer?
Holdall nodded. He was almost completely covered in long, very fine green hair, and as he nodded, he looked like nothing so much as an oscillating maidenhair fern.
Why not just dissolve it?
George's brow furrowed.
Dissolve it? How?
Holdall coughed.
Ladies present,
he muttered.
What's this little creep talking about?
Well,
said Holdall self-consciously,
let me see, how can I put this? Why is it, do you think, that in hell all the staff lavatories are made of solid, unflawed diamond, and even then they got to be replaced twice a year?
George's head was beginning to hurt.
Shut him up, somebody, he said. Right, you with the backed front head, pack the stuff around the base while I...
He's right, said Prodsnap. Much quieter, Chardonnay agreed, plus less damage to property, risk to innocent bystanders from flying masonry. Let's face it, the demon added, letting off bombs in the centre of a big city is pretty damn irresponsible.
Look.
Just a second, grunted Slitgrind. What if that bloody great thing wakes up while we're peeing all over him? He's not going to be pleased.
Prodsnap scowled.
Maybe,
he said. On the other hand, he might be even less pleased if he catches us festooning him with ruddy Semtex. I'm with what's-his-name, Holdall, on this one. Vote, people.
Vote.
George rolled his eyes.
This is an assassination, not a debating society.
Show of claws, Chardonnay said quickly. All in favour? That's unanimous. Now then, he grinned nervously. What we need is something to drink. I have a problem.
2 problems. All right, Chubby said. 2 problems. So I need 2 answers. Any joy? You, my soulmate, are in trouble. Listen, Chubby sighed. I'm in trouble so often I have a flat there. What can I do about it?
The screen went blank, then filled with question marks. That, Chubby recognised, meant it was thinking.
Symbol, you need help.
I don't want to sound ungrateful, Chubby said, but I could have got that far asking the speaking clock. Details, please.
There is a dragon. Give him a job.
Chubby frowned. And which bit of my soul are you going to charge me for that particular gem? He said. I think you've just earned yourself the bit I use for doing my tax returns. Enjoy!
Patience. In Birmingham, which is a city in the English Midlands, there is a dragon. He's there to find and kill a saint. Dragons are.
The screen filled with question marks, then asterisks. Chubby leaned back in his chair, his chin cupped between his hands.
Are what?
Different.
Different? How different?
Square brackets this time, followed by exclamation marks, ampersands and Greek E's. All this was new to Chubby. He was interested.
How do you do that? He asked. Press E plus extra.
Different because they don't. I find this an extremely difficult concept, I must admit. I had forgotten all about dragons. It's been a long time. A long time since what? Never you mind. I think I can explain. Angels and devils are spirits, emanations from the mind of God. Human beings and all the other animate species who inhabit Earth are spirits too, but made flesh. In their duality, God makes the great experiment, plays the everlasting game.
With you so far, so what are dragons?
Very large reptiles.
Chubby sighed. I know that, he said. I had a ladybird book all about them, but what else?
Nothing else. That's why they're different. And, of course, incredibly valuable.
All his life, Chubby had found a music sweeter than 1,000 violins in the word valuable. He leaned forward.
Amplify,
he said. Very well. Think of the neutrality of Switzerland.
Nice place, Switzerland. I love the way they run things there.
The neutrality of Switzerland, the mentality of Ireland, and the military might of Russia, America, and China put together. Look at it another way. Because dragons don't exist anymore, no allowance is made for them in the great equation. They are neither flesh nor spirit, us or them, good or evil, they just are. The same goes, incidentally, for the milkweed butterfly of Southern America, except that milkweed butterflies don't wipe out major cities when they sneeze.
Just a moment. I thought dragons were evil.
Not intrinsically. Call them floating voters if you like. Besides, what is evil?
Well, you are for a start.
True, but I'm exceptional. And don't forget, I'm also stuck in this nasty, cramped little box.
Chubby closed his eyes and thought for a moment.
We are getting sidetracked,
he said.
How can a dragon be useful to me?
First, they can fly faster than light. Second, they can kill saints and vaporize demons. Third, they can be hired for money.
I see. Lots of money?
Traditionally, they sleep in caves on heaps of gold and precious stones.
This is some kind of health fad, right? Like those car seat covers made out of knobbly wooden beads.
Greed, a physical lust for wealth. That's the traditional view, anyway. Times have changed. Maybe dragons have changed too.
Suddenly, Chubby felt tired, more tired even than interested or frightened.
"All right," he said. "How do I get in touch with this dragon? Can I talk to him? Will he accept pay-as-you-burn? Or will he want a princess on account?"
If you want me to answer that, it will count as a separate inquiry.
"Good night, machine."
Any time.
The green light faded. Chubby stood up, found that his legs had somehow lost their rigidity, and sat down again. Talking to that thing always made him feel like he'd been trapped in a spin dryer. Not so long ago, he'd passed a computer shop. Special deal. Its window had shouted to him, part exchange, any model accepted. He'd been tempted, but would it let him? And even if it did he really want to? After all, the damage was probably done by now. Highly unlikely that you could regrow a damaged soul, like a slow worm's tail. Before he left the office, he stopped in front of a mirror and looked in. "Hey," he asked, "are you evil?" The picture in the mirror said nothing.
"Lousy copycat,"
Chubby grumbled, and switched off the light. Halfway through his lamp-asander, the dragon dropped his fork and choked. "Rice gone down the wrong way?" Bianca asked with her mouth full. "Try a drink of water." The dragon spluttered, convulsed, and fell off his chair. Bianca, who usually had the lamp-asander, but this time had opted for a chicken korma, summoned a waiter. "I think my friend needs a doctor," she said, "or maybe a vet. Call both, and," she added, "then get me another Peshwari naan." With a tremendous effort, the dragon hauled himself back onto his chair. Drawing in breath was as difficult as pulling in a troll net full of lead ingots, and his hands were shaking uncontrollably.
"What's happening to me?" he gasped. "I feel like I'm being burned alive."
"Oh," said Bianca, relaxing a little. "We call that lime pickle. It's quite usual." This time, the dragon's spasm sent him rolling on the floor, taking the table and the coat rack with him. Smoke was pouring out of holes in his shoes, and there was quite a repulsive smell. Bianca was on her feet, very much aware that there was absolutely nothing she could usefully do.
"The statue!"
The dragon hissed, spending each atom of breath as if he was a dentist buying magazines for the waiting room.
"Run! It has to be George."
Slamming her credit card on the next-door table. Damn, she thought, forgot the tip. But the rice was stone cold, so what the hell? Bianca ran out into the street and headed for Victoria Square. If anybody was fooling with her statue, there would be hell to pay. It's difficult, isn't it, to do it to order? Think of the trouble you have filling a small bottle behind a screen at the doctor's. Then imagine a life-size statue of a dragon. "I find it helps to think of running water," said Chardonnay, his nose wrinkled against the offensive smell. Gushing taps, chortling brooks, waterfalls.
Shut up, Char, you're not helping.
"Milky tea works best in my experience," said Holdall. "Goes straight through me, especially first thing in the morning."
For what it's worth, Holdall had contributed more than the others put together, thereby confirming the view that Prodsnap had formed of him a few moments after they'd first met. There was now a hole in the dragon's back left paw you could have hidden a cottage loaf in.
"This,"
George grunted,
"is stupid. I'm going to get the explosives."
Chardonnay looked down at the small crater in the marble directly underneath where he was standing. "Maybe you're right," he conceded. "Otherwise, we're going to be here all night, and it doesn't seem like there's much risk now of that horrid thing waking up." Prodsnap nodded.
"And what about the noise?" he said. "Not that I'm arguing with you,"
he added quickly, for it wasn't exactly a warm night, and he was sure he'd pulled a muscle.
"But if there's anything we can do to keep the volume down, it'd be worth the effort. Something tells me that passing it off as a car backfiring won't really do."
"Cover it with the blast shield and hope," George replied. "In any case, so long as we don't hang a bite too long afterwards, a bit of bang will be neither here nor there. Trust me, I'm a saint.
It didn't take the 7 of them long to get the explosives in position, and George made light work of wiring up the detonators. Father Kelly, who hadn't really been able to contribute to the previous attempt, helped by passing George screwdrivers and, to the great irritation of all present, praying.
"OK, lads," said George, lifting the plunger. "Firework time. Stand clear or prepare to fly."
"What the hell do you goons think you're doing with my statue?" George looked over his shoulder to see a tall, angry-looking female with her hands on her hips and an expression on her face you could have built a thriving yogurt business around. He scowled.
"Piss off, lady," he snapped.
Then he remembered. "You!" Bianca said. "Right. Bear in mind that George was a saint and had been a knight. Saints and knights do not fight with women. It's unchivalrous. More to the point, they generally lose." Still holding the detonator box by the handle, he started to back away.
"Help," he said.
Demons, and the denizens of hell on the other hand, have no such scruples, particularly if they outnumber the woman 5 to 1. The demons advanced. "Madam," said Chardonnay, Mr. Play It by the Book, "I have to inform you that we are duly authorised law officers in the execution of our duty. If you obstruct us, you will be committing an offence punishable by—" Oh, shit. He had trodden on Slitgren's tail, a lanky, unpleasant object, having a lot in common with a banana skin. He wobbled and tried to grab hold of the fiend next to him, but he was standing beside Holdall, 4'1" in his stocking talons. His heel slid out from underneath him, and he fell heavily against George, who was off balance anyway, trying to hide behind Snorkfrod. A moment later, there was a confused heap of demons and a click. George would have landed awkwardly, but the plunger of the detonator box broke his fall. There was a very loud noise. Oh my goodness. I still can't get over the whole sort of urination references. Sorry, I had to say it that way because it's fun. I hope you're enjoying these recordings. Hopefully you didn't hear Ellie telling me the song of her people in the background, because for some reason she's been quite attention hungry over the past couple of days, but she's all right. There's nothing wrong, you know, everything's healthy diggity boo, but for some reason she's deciding to tell me all about it on a regular basis if I am, you know, upstairs and she's downstairs. But she won't come upstairs. She will not come in this middle room. She doesn't like it in here. She has to be downstairs. So she's only happy when I'm downstairs. Hey! Yuffie couldn't care less. The cats really couldn't care either. It's just Ellie. She's like, Mama, come play with me. And after I got her a really nice toy thing, you know, one of those flippy up toy, like kind of they investigate and they find stuff. Even though it is better for smaller dogs, and Yuffie was all over it and Ellie just couldn't get her face in it. But I digress, my lovely, lovely beans. Well, you're not my lovely beans, but you are lovely beans. And I appreciate you all very, very much. Very much indeed. So, please, as I said, let me know how you're getting on. Tell me a joke or anything like that, or a little anecdote. I do appreciate you. Appreciate you. For always coming back and saying hi and having a listen and enjoying it and everything. So that's outstanding. I wish I could remember the Fraggles theme today. My brain's all over the place. I think it's because I just want to go downstairs and see what's wrong with Ellie and why she's shouting at me. And I don't know why she's shouting at me, so I'll have to go and check it out. Yes. Anyway, we will mend it, we will fix it, we will stick it with scissors and glue and stuff. See you in a couple of days, lovely beans. Stay safe, drink lots of water, get lots of sleep, stay warm if it's cold, cool down if it's warm, hydrate. Take it easy, lovely beanios, and I'll see you soon.